Welcome everybody, I'm Kamil Sarji, the broker owner of Gold Door Realty, and this is my show, Just 2 Minutes. We have Al Robinson here from Lapointe Insurance.
Hey Kamil,
Hi,
thanks
Al.
for having me, buddy.
Thank you very much for coming down.
Yeah, I appreciate this.
This is really special.
This is so special. This, just near and dear to my heart, Kamil.
Scale of 1 to 10, how special is it?
It's like an 11, 100%.
Cool. Awesome, I feel special. Special.
Sure, yeah, yep.
All right, so the way this works, Just 2 Minutes, is basically I ask you a bunch of random questions for 2 minutes.
Oh man.
And then...
Like PG or G, how we keep
Oh yeah, I gotta keep it PG,
Okay, cool. I'm cool with that. It's for the kids.
I don't want to get flagged.
Yeah.
And then after that, we're going to talk about real estate and insurance. I have some things that questions that I have that realtors are probably curious about. So it'll be cool to ask.
Let's do it.
Okay. Okay, here we go. And this is the timer.
Oh boy.
1, 2. All right. So if you were to get like an eensy beensy teeny weeny tattoo, what would you get?
I don't know. Probably like my son's initials.
Cool.
Yeah.
What's the best sandwich?
Best sandwich? I mean, it's an Italian. This is Rhode Island, man. That's like a question you just have to answer. Italian grinder, like 100%. Like,
Yeah.
gotta have the balsamic glaze on there, prosciutto. All the necessities of an Italian sandwich. Gotta have it.
What's a place that you visited that you don't ever want to go back to again?
Central Falls.
Oh my gosh. All right. So how about...
You weren't expecting that, were you?
No.
Okay.
I was thinking of a vacation spot or something. I should have said vacation spot.
Yeah. I'm joking about Central Falls. No. A place that I wouldn't want to go back to. That's tough. Maybe Dallas. I've been to Dallas. I wasn't really a fan of Dallas, Texas. I probably wouldn't go back to Dallas.
Okay. What's the worst movie you ever watched?
I'm gonna get hate for this, but The Notebook. Something about it just...
Dude,
yeah.
I know.
I don't know. Just something about that movie. Just...
My wife just watched that and it's like...
Yeah, my wife likes it too. I can't. I gotta leave the room.
And they have a play coming up.
Yep.
But anyways, okay, cool. So what about, do you believe in second chances?
100%.
You do?
Of course.
All right, how about the best concert that you've ever been to?
I've seen Brad Paisley twice now, both times, 100%. I'm a big Brad Paisley guy, so he puts on an awesome show. He's an entertainer, always changes his guitars, every song. It's something, you got to see it in person to believe it. It's awesome.
I'm disappointed you're a country guy. Who's the best rapper ever?
H to the Izzo, Jay-Z.
Oh, cool. All right. And...
Oh, at the buzzer. That's pretty cool, though. Oh, no, we got 6 seconds. Or it's over.
Wait, 10.
Oh, it's going up. All right. That's it. At the buzzer. That was good.
This thing's awesome. Yeah, what'd you think?
That was great. Yeah, the randomness is great. Like, that's just
crazy.
It's tough to do random questions because you don't know how people are gonna react, But I think the best answers are just the ones just off the cuff.
Like Central Falls.
Yeah, like that's gonna probably offend some people. But I mean, would you go back to the CF if you?
I would be insulted if you said Woonsocket because that's where I grew up.
I was gonna, but I was like, I'll just leave that on the back burner for now. I figured, yeah. I like Woonsocket. I like Central Falls too. It's yeah.
So speaking of Woonsocket and Central Falls, let's talk insurance.
Let's talk insurance, sure. Good segue.
So Lapointe Insurance, I love them. You guys have like the best marketing strategy. But what I do like is like for an insurance company and to insure someone, it's very specific on the different things that you can cover. Like, something happens and they're like, well, no, you weren't walking up 2 steps, you're walking up 3, so it's not covered.
Yeah.
But I like how you guys combine everything to simplify it for the customer and saying, hey, do you want the standard or the deluxe?
Yeah.
So how'd you guys come up with what is a standard? Or maybe you could tell us what's standard. And what's
No, it's a good question. I appreciate the shout out to Kamil. I think first and foremost, like it's always a two-way street, especially when it comes to working with real estate professionals. So a big part of our agency is doing home insurance, right? It's kind of what our niche is, what we specialize in, and working with the realtors, the lenders, the real estate professionals, we love doing that. I like speaking the language, and I think when you go into a transaction with a realtor or lender as an insurance agent, you speak the language. It kind of sets you apart from other agents out there. The main question, how did we come up with our proposals, right? How we send stuff out. I always go back to like when I first got my first house and, got my insurance policy, right? As a first-time home buyer, you have no idea what insurance covers you for. If you do, great, and again, a lot of what you're covered for on insurance is found online. You can simply Google, what does my home insurance policy cover me for? And that's great. But I think the more important piece is like, what doesn't it cover you for? And that's really not necessarily a gray area, but it's almost a bigger area as opposed to what it does cover you for. So
like hot water heater blowing up floods the basement, that's covered. But if rain comes down to the basement, it's not covered.
Yeah, right. So, and that's the thing, right? I think I will circle back to your question. People that know me know I like to kind of talk a lot, but I will bring it back full circle. So yeah, and I'll answer that now, right? So when we propose our insurance, we want to make it as easy and as simple as possible. If you're buying a home for the first time, you could be pulled into 25 different directions, right? Realtor, lender, attorney, maybe a home inspector, maybe an appraiser. Now you throw an insurance guy out into the mix and you send out a quote and they're just looking at a bunch of numbers, right? We try to give people options, right? We're in a time in the insurance industry where it is a very price conscious industry. I've been in positions where home insurance can sometimes make or break the deal. A few dollars here and there can really affect someone's budget, and if you're a lender, it could affect an income ratio. So we want to make sure we give people options, right? That's, I think, kind of what it's all about, is giving people options. If they want our deluxe option that has a couple extra bells and whistles, great. Not necessarily you need it to close on your loan, but if you want that peace of mind knowing you're going to have some extra stuff covered that basic home policy won't cover you for, great. And then we have our standard option, which again, I don't want to call it a dumbed down version or a basic option. I don't like that word. So standard is, again, what a basic, standard, run-of-the-mill, cut and dry home insurance policy would cover you for. It's going to cover you for all your basic home insurance claims that most policies would. And, it will still give you the peace of mind knowing that if something happens to your home, you'll have the right type of coverage for what's actually needed.
I know there's like different things, or the basics of a home insurance. Fire is a basic.
Yep.
Is part of the standard versus deluxe. What else? I'm sure there's a lot to list, but
yeah, this would be like a 12-hour podcast going over what a home insurance policy does cover you for. People think of a home insurance claim, the first thing that comes to mind is, fire, burst pipe, theft, vandalism, and those things are all covered in a basic home insurance policy. Where it gets gray, right, as you would say, where it gets tricky is a burst pipe is a typical peril that's covered in a home insurance policy. But what if a pipe in your home backs up and causes damage, right? You have a sink, tub, toilet back up, cause damage. You have a sump pump fail, it causes a backup. A basic home insurance policy is not going to typically cover you for something like that unless it's endorsed as a water backup coverage, right? So if those things do happen, where a pipe backs up, a sump pump fails, you have a backup and overflow, if you have that endorsed the right way, then yes, you would have coverage for that if it's endorsed that way.
So does the deluxe cover if the sump pump goes when there's like rainwater coming down to the basement?
Right, yeah. Okay. So if you had a sump pump fail, right, a carrier that offered that sump pump water backup endorsement, you'd have a certain amount of coverage built into that policy. Yeah, for something like that. If you didn't elect it and you had that happen, then you'd be,
Does it specific or part of the deluxe versus standard?
It's specific.
Or it's an addition?
Yeah, so it is an addition. Yeah. It's specific from company to company. So some companies may not offer that water backup or sump pump, endorsement, failure endorsement. In our proposals, we try to annotate that. So if we offer a deluxe option versus a standard, here's what the deluxe option covers. Boom, boom, boom. This
but
extra
for regular like homeowner, they don't know that they could cover. So is there like a standard deluxe and a super special like?
Yeah, and again, I think that's
everything covered.
Yeah, right. And I think that's kind of the route that when you explain insurance to somebody, less is sometimes more. When you start throwing 3, 6, 8 options at somebody, again, if you're a first-time home, like even for someone in the industry, when I hear 7 different options, I'm like, my head starts spinning, right? So we keep it simple with 2 different options, right? Deluxe option. Here's what it covers, right? Boom, boom, boom. These are all the extra endorsements. These are the perils that would be covered in the event of a claim. Here's your standard. Still great option. It's going to give you the basic coverage for a home insurance policy. It just excludes this, this, this. And again, the additional endorsements are variant from carrier to carrier. Some companies cover you for service lines to and from the house. Some companies don't. So that's where our deluxe option we note that in the proposal. Like, here's what this deluxe option covers. This endorsement, this one versus standard, which is just your basic home insurance policy.
Okay. For me, I'm a perfectionist and I want everything perfect and I want to cover everything so I can sleep at night. Yeah. So as far as as an agent, there's so many things we don't know. And as far as going into a house and being like, oh yeah, you're under contract, great. Because this is the process that I do. Yeah. Like, you're under contract, awesome. You should get some quotes. Here's Al to also get you a quote. But for an agent to actually know a little bit more and be able to say, hey, I noticed you have a sump pump down here, you should probably get that insurance. So how can me and other agents know what to watch out from
Yeah.
to be able to tell you so that you're creating a package for them that's going to be
that's catered.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think now more so than ever, it is important to really try to get ahead of any insurance related issues before they become a problem, right? We're in, so our industry right now is in what we call a hard market, right? And there's a lot of components that go into the definition of a hard market, right? Very quickly summarizing that, there's a lot of companies that are not writing new business. They just don't want to write anything new, specific states, Rhode Island being one of them. There's companies that are just cracking down, every company really are cracking down on underwriting, right? So if there are issues at an insurance inspection, they need to be addressed. This wasn't a big thing during COVID because during COVID, you weren't allowing people into your homes, right? So now that COVID's kind of behind us for the most part, inspections are coming back prolifically. So something to keep in mind. And then rates, rates are up across the board for a multitude of reasons, right? Claims is the first thing, right? There's been so many crazy natural disasters over the past few years that have affected all these insurance companies. You have companies in certain states that are just pulling out of the state completely. So it's important now, I think more so than ever, to make sure that, when a home insurance policy is issued, up until that point, it's underwritten and looked at the right way. So as a realtor, you want to be going through that home, maybe not necessarily with a fine tooth comb, but think of it from an insurance inspector standpoint, right? Whenever you get into a home insurance policy, that company will send someone out to inspect the property to make sure if there are things that need to be addressed, they are addressed. Again, main components, right? Roofing, heating, plumbing, electric, driveway cracks, things to help mitigate risk. So if you're seeing, an old or not working sump pump in a basement or a garage, absolutely something you want to bring up because they could have a policy that covers them for a sump pump failure or backup. But if the sump pump's not working to begin with, they go to file a claim, the claim could be denied because the sump pump wasn't working before anyways. So just stuff like that. As an insurance agent, it's our job to look out for the client's best interest to make sure that they have the right protection at the right price. As a realtor, it's kind of that same code of ethics, right? You want to make sure that if you're helping somebody buy or sell a home, that the home is in great shape for the buyers, right? But you're also trying to get top dollar for your sellers. So for you guys, it's kind of a two-sided equation. So yeah, I mean, the more, I think to be really successful to kind of, as a realtor, look at all aspects of the transaction, you have to have some insurance knowledge, I think, and know what to expect. Again, every company's going to go out to inspect that property after closing from the insurance standpoint. That's part of the process.
And now,
100%. And now it's getting to a point where if it's not a drive-by inspection, some states will actually do drone inspections. So that industry's changing, with technology. And again, it is because these companies really want to protect their, financial being in that property. So it makes sense when you look at it from that standpoint, right? But it is part of the process. So it's got to be an expectation. If there's a roof that has missing shingles, cracked shingles, or a leak, expectation as a buyer is that's got to be addressed after closing, because if you have a claim, the insurance company's not going to pay that claim. So
what if the roof is 24 years old?
Yep.
Is there insurance for roof that's kind of like that?
Yeah.
How is it covered?
Right. So that's a loaded question, right? So the short answer is home insurance is never going to cover you for normal wear and tear. So if you have a 24-year-old roof, average life on a roof with, architectural shingles is 25, 30 years, it's close to the end of its life, right? So if you have
a little bit of wind will cause
right, and that's because those roofs only last 25, 30 years, right?
Yeah.
That's just part of being a homeowner is the maintenance piece, So you have to have the expectation that home maintenance or normal wear and tear is not covered by a home insurance policy. It's like if you had to, put brakes in your vehicle because your vehicle is at 40,000 miles.
What if the thing flies off in wind?
Right. So and that's kind of what you're up against, though, is it could be, but it also couldn't be. Again, if the insurance company deemed that this roof flew off because it's just old and it's at the end of its life, then they could deny a claim. And some companies will offer what they call roof exclusions, where the roof or any roof-related claim is excluded from the policy. So you could have coverage for a burst pipe or a fire, but if we have a hurricane that blows, your roof off, you may not have coverage if you have that roof exclusion on there. So there's ways to kind of help fine tune it. But again, just back to my main point, it really is all about helping the client understand what home insurance covers you for, what it doesn't cover you for, and how to just help mitigate any potential losses. Because that's kind of what insurance is there for. It's there when you need it, but it's not going to cover you for something that wouldn't be covered for anyways. Hopefully that makes sense.
Okay. So another big thing that's happening in Rhode Island this year a lot is, the rain and floods.
Yeah.
And I'm sure I know that a lot of homes weren't expecting or not even they don't have flood insurance because they're not in the flood zone.
Right.
So what could they have done to prevent something like that? Is there
Yeah, so great question, right? So you can't really do much from a mother nature standpoint to prevent flooding, right? We've had, last year was a crazy, crazy year of rain. We had rain like literally the whole year. We had a crazy rainstorm like right before Christmas last year, if you remember that.
But earthquake insurance, there's earthquake insurance.
Right, so flooding is a very hot topic right now. I live in North Providence right now, and we've seen so much rain, even in our town, my neighborhood. I live on a hill, and yeah, like, you know, my garage will get water from time to time, not much, but last year it was like we get a sprinkle of rain, I feel like, and I'd have water in my garage. So the short answer is, what can people do, right? So flood insurance is accessible for anyone. Whether your home's in a flood zone or not, you can get a flood insurance policy. If you're not in a flood zone, it's a pretty inexpensive, that's like cheap, but an inexpensive policy to attain. Again, it's only gonna give you coverage up to a certain amount of money. So most flood insurance policies cover you for up to $250,000. So if you have a home that rebuild is $500K, you're only getting $250, right? So that's one thing to consider. Most flood insurance policies, if they're endorsed the right way, will cover you for your belongings too, depending on where they're located inside the home. So there are ways to get coverage if you have water from an outside source come into your home. That's the true definition of flood insurance. One thing we're seeing is, when I'm using my town as an example, there was federal assistance offered last year and into this year for flooding. So again, I live on a hill. On my street, the bottom of the street, we had a few homes affected by flooding last year. Pretty extensive damage. FEMA was called in, and these people ended up getting some money, which is great. You know, that's kind of what it's there for. The concern when that happens is if you have a whole bunch of homes that are getting federal assistance from flood, now FEMA has to go back out there and remap that area. So now these areas that weren't in a flood zone are now in a flood zone, right? So, and this is happening literally, a few blocks down the road from me. People are getting letters in the mail saying, hey, your home is, now in a flood zone and you need flood insurance. So my opinion, yeah, it's kind of a double-edged sword. We want to be able to help people when they need it. Because again, last year was just an absolute one-off from a rain standpoint. Can it happen again? Of course it can. But you're going to see over the next couple of years, especially homes in areas that were never in flood zones are going to be the flood zones. And all it takes is that one flooding, for it to happen. There's ways to help mitigate that, but if Mother Nature wants it to rain every weekend during the summer, it can happen. So yeah, so short answer, right, is flood insurance is available for anyone that needs it, whether you're in a home, whether you're in a flood zone or not. I would highly recommend, if you're not in a flood zone, to take a look at getting something, because it is relatively inexpensive.
Yeah, because we have a way of looking to see if an area is in the flood zone. And again, part of my process is getting you guys involved earlier so you can let us know if it is in a flood zone that we didn't know about. Yeah. So that's why it's super important to get you guys involved in the beginning stage. What can you help agents figure out if it's in a flood zone? Because you said you use an updated map to figure out.
Yeah, 100%. And I would encourage any agents, if you have concerns of a home being in a flood zone, whether you know or not, reach out to us anytime. I get that phone call twice, 3 times a day sometimes from agents being like, hey, I was home in a flood zone. I have no problem doing that. It takes us a minute to look it up. And yeah, it gives you the right answer, because the last thing you want to do is go into a deal where you think the home's not in a flood zone. You get to 3 or 4 days before closing and you find out, hey, the home's in a flood zone. Guess what? Now your buyer needs, flood insurance, and you can't afford it. X, Y, Z.
You lose buying the house.
So yeah, and we've seen that, and we, as a realtor, I'm sure you want to mitigate that happening to you, because that's probably
the budget's so tight with the market.
And back to my point about just now, it's so important now more so than ever to just have the right type of people in your toolbox during the buy and sell side transaction, because something like this happens, you could have just made a quick phone call and help eliminate that. So yeah, reach out. I would encourage that 100%, because it gives you an idea of how much more it could cost if the home's not in a flood zone. If they want flood insurance, it can give them an idea if they want it. That's an option for them as well too.
Awesome. Any other things that we might not know about that we should as an agent?
We shop around. So I think when you hear the term agent, people forget that, a better word to use I've used before is the term broker. We shop around for you. Our agency has 20 companies that we write all of New England. So we save you the hassle of calling 20 different companies. We do that all in a one-stop shop. It's a free service. You don't pay any money to work with an insurance agent. Even if it's just to get a quote, there's no charge for it, Why wouldn't you want to work with an agent that's going to do the legwork for you? I mean, I always tell this story, when I bought my first home, I remember calling out of work to call 25 different insurance companies to get a quote. It took half a day to do so. This was, 10 years ago. And that's the cool thing is, our industry is changing so much from a technology standpoint that, we can shop these companies in a matter of minutes, hours, and have a quote for you within a day, and a nice little handy proposal that shows the breakdown. And we also do more than just home insurance too. And I think that's one of the cool things that I always realize is my niche is home insurance. I do a lot of home insurance policies, but I also do auto insurance, commercial insurance, motorcycle insurance, boat insurance, which I love doing that stuff as well too, And,
Insure animals?
I don't insure any animals. That's the one thing I don't do, but I have companies that will do it.
What's the craziest request for it? What kind of animal is the craziest?
I had a guy that had snakes, and I couldn't, from a liability standpoint, I couldn't actually insure his home. But he asked if I knew a company that did animals, and I was like, well, what do you guys? Like, I have some snakes. I'm like, all right, yeah, call these people,
Snakes are normal. I'm talking about like Bigfoot.
No Bigfoot, yeah, but I'll let you know what the price is to insure a Bigfoot.
It's like when they try to come in the house, they like break the door, and they're so big and
try to file claims. It's part of being a Bigfoot, I guess, right?
It's obvious because you see the arm.
Yeah, and the big feet too.
And the big feet, yeah. That's crazy.
Crazy.
So, yeah, I was trying to think of what else to mention.
Yeah, I can talk on a few things, right? So hot topic items right now is renter's insurance, right? So a lot of people are buying these multifamily homes, 2, 3, 4 family homes, which we do. If you're a landlord, definitely want to encourage your tenants to look into renter's insurance. Yeah,
yes, you should.
There's a lot of confusion between if you're renting a place, what's covered versus, again, what's not covered, As a tenant, right, as a renter, if there's a claim in that place and you lose personal property, your stuff's not covered, right? So that's just cut and dry. That's how it works. A renter's insurance policy is like $15-20 a month. It's super cheap. Most policies will give you the coverage for your belongings, which they should. Some policies will cover you for a layer of liability as well too, which is also a great piece to have because it could protect you when someone's in your unit. So that's a great thing to think about if you're a renter. A lot of renters out there, I'm sure. And if you're a landlord, encouraging people to get that policy, because it is $20 a month, but most people that rent a place have a lot of stuff, 20, 30, 40 grand worth of stuff. So furniture alone can be 20 grand.
I put it in the rental agreement or the lease saying you need to get homeowners insurance. And then it's like off my plate because I don't want that guilt.
Yeah, and we can bundle that. I've seen situations, it's very common where, people will bundle their auto with a renter's policy and like the discount almost like waives the renter's policy. If I can save someone $20 a month on their auto policy, that's gonna waive a renter's, insurance policy. So they almost kind of like get a free policy, if you think of it that way.
So last question.
Yeah.
What is covered in the deluxe package that people don't know about?
Again, it's variant from carrier to carrier because every company is going to give you a different package with a certain endorsement. I'll stick with the personal property piece, right? So on a deluxe option, most companies offer replacement costs on your belongings. And why is that important today, right? So we know that inflation is a real thing. Whenever you lose a personal item in a claim, you're paid out for that item, but you're only paid out at its depreciated value or actual cash value. So if you bought these chairs 10 years ago and they were worth $1,000 when you bought them,
they're $10 now.
You're not getting $1,000 today, right? What the replacement cost endorsement will is they'll allow you to go out and get a like item and the insurance company will reimburse you for that like item. So I think that's super important now because let's face it, like we're in a time where everything is inflated. Like you said, you might only get $10 for similar chairs on a home insurance policy.
Dishwasher replaced, microwave, stove.
Yeah. So that would be
washing machine.
So again, all those appliances, if you lost that in a fire, let's say, again, like if you own those things or you bought a home where they were in the home, great, but you're not getting $2,000 for a brand new fridge unless you have that endorsed the right way. So I think that's critical. The cool thing about insurance is that you can always change a policy. So you're not locked into a policy for the life of your loan or your mortgage. If you decide that in 2 years you want to add an endorsement or remove an endorsement, you can. That's kind of one of the luxuries of an insurance, given you have no open claims. But it's something to think about, and I think I tell the first-time home buyer a really good way to look at how much stuff you have is when you're moving, right? You're packing all your stuff into boxes, you're putting it in a moving van or truck. Make note of that. Take a video or pictures of all the stuff you have. Like there's always that one closet you forget about where like my wife has like 1 million pairs of shoes or like 20 jackets that like my home had a claim and I lost this room. I may have forgotten about that stuff,
Even walk around like a video. This is a
absolutely
Sony model, blah, blah, blah.
And again, like years ago, companies wanted like serial numbers and like an itemized list of inventory. Again, we're in the 21st century now where that has changed. Our industry is changing substantially. But it's always good to have those things as a backup because they may want proof that you had, $2,000 chairs if it were to come up during the claims process. So a great time to look at your stuff is just when you're moving, to and from your new place, because that gives you a real eye-opening look at like all the stuff that you have. Because $100,000 on an insurance policy for personal property, that can go pretty quickly. And you can always change that and that really won't impact the policy too much, but more is always less, I think, than what you think when you actually like add up all that in your head,
Cool. So note to self and the viewers and listeners, just walk around, record record everything that you have, serial numbers, and then post it on TikTok. So it's saved in the cloud, and then everybody can see, and you can see, and
Yeah.
you're not lying.
Just don't post like, all the high-end stuff like memorabilia, like, the Rolex watches.
Oh crap!
Five.
Sorry, maybe not TikTok. Just post it on
The dark web. Yeah.
Dark web.
That's probably a better idea.
Yeah. Just don't mention your address, and don't put location
or your town.
on the video.
Oh man.
Oh, Al, thank you very much
Camille,
for coming down.
Thank you so much. This is great. Absolutely.
Thanks for the info.
Yeah, for sure, man. Thank you.
Now you got a point. Do a half a smile. Hey.
Just bind it. Just bind it. Just bind it. This is the newest addition to the LaPointe swag binders.
Nice.
That'll be a good thumbnail.
What's 99? What's that? Is that when you were born?
I got 99 binders and I'll get you
Oh,
one.
that's right. That's right. I remember that.
I got 99 binders and I'll get you one.
That's awesome.
If you're having loan problems, I feel bad for you, son. I got 99 binders and I'll get you one. You like that?
Awesome.
That was
the video. Yeah.
That was it? Like, it should be a video.
That's what you guys, or
No.
didn't you mention it?
That was off the cuff, but now it's got to be a video. I mean, you mentioned it.
All right,
man,
awesome.
that was
Thank
cool,
you.
man.